You're watching Talking About Orks. In this episode of Talking About Orks, we're going to be going over the Big Gunz battery. Big Gunz are a heavy support choice. They include from 1 to 3 artillery pieces with 2 crew per artillery piece. They are cheap as dirt, coming in at a base of 20 points per model for a cannon, 25 points per gun for a lava, or 30 points per gun for a zap gun. You can add additional crew, you can add ammo runts, and you can add a runt herd. I like Big Gunz a lot. I like them especially in smaller point games under 1500 points, where your heavy support choices are definitely do not have the same level of competition for those 3 slots that you would have at a higher points game. But and being so cheap, they can be quite effective in those low point games. I have cannons and lavas. I do not like zap guns. I think zap guns are horrible items, having to roll for both strength and to hit. AP2 is simply something that the Orks don't need to worry about. Don't worry about AP2 if you're playing Orks, ever. Just don't worry about it. The way to deal with AP2 stuff is more choppa attacks. Make them roll more dice, more shooters, more sluggers, more dice. AP2 is a complete waste of time. Complete waste of points in Orks. But anyway, I digress. Big Gunz are great. I really do like them in lower point games. And I said in the higher point games, your heavy support choices are way too tight to make room for one of these guys. But 1,000 points, 1,250 points, running a cheap unit of Big Gunz is a way to add a good amount of punch to your army. I like both cannons and lavas. Cannons are great because they can fire either a slug or a template. And again, these are grots, so they count as BS3. So you've got 3 strength 8 shots at BS3, and if you take the ammo runs, which you should always take the ammo runs, you get 3 rerolls per game. So in those early shots, you can definitely get at that rhino or that wave serpent out of the game right away. The downside to the cannons, of course, they are only 36-inch range, so you have to be careful when you set them up. And things can easily outrange them, so you do have to worry about range on the cannons a lot more. Lavas are 48-inch range, and lavas are just fantastic. 3 blasts, barrage, pinning, BS3 with rerolls. That's awesome. It may not be the best against MEQ armies, but against everything else, they're going to be taking some pinning checks. Now, as far as upgrades, I said always take your 3 ammo runs. That should be mandatory. So a base unit of 3 lavas with 3 ammo runs comes in at a mere 84 points. And if you just pin a unit, my favorite thing to do is pin my opponent's ludas. That's an awesome way to use the Big Gunz. So against another Ork player, I love taking 1 or 2 lavas. It's very effective. Additional crew, which can help with their survivability and taking fewer leadership checks if they come under fire. They're cheap. I mean, they're 3 points per model, just like a regular grot. And you can add up to 6 additional grot crew per unit. Now that's per gun per unit. So that's a maximum of 12 grots. The other option you can take is a runt herd. I definitely don't consider the runt herd a bad choice because it's a very common tactic. I've been the victim of this more than once. Is to tank shock the Big Gunz off the table. Because if you just have the grots, they're only leadership 5, so if you come after them, they're probably going to go away. The runt herd helps that a little bit, and more than once, he's been worth his 10 points. So Big Gunz are obviously sit back in your deployment zone, in cover, taking pot shots and stuff. There's really not much else to say. They're artillery, so they follow all the artillery rules that are in the Big Red Book. Really not much else to talk about, I guess. Cannons, lavas, good. Zaps, bad. Big Gunz, really good in low point games. I like them a lot. A lot of people don't like Big Gunz, but when you're not fighting over those heavy support choice slots, when you're not getting 2 battle wagons in your cans, when you're not doing a whole bunch of different things, when you're heavy support, big guns are definitely a viable option. And they might surprise you if you haven't tried them. If you haven't played them yet, they might surprise you. That BS3 is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's definitely something to look at as to why they're useful. If they were still BS2, they'd probably be useless. But because they're BS3, it really makes a big difference. So big guns, a lot of fun. A good heavy support choice for low point games. Can definitely deal out some damage if they're allowed to sit there. And a lot of opponents will just let them sit there. They won't worry about them. It's just like this little thing of artillery. So what if they blow up a rhino per turn? That's no big deal, right? Big guns, a viable unit? Yes. A lot of fun? Yes. Deadly? Can definitely be deadly. And they're just cheap. You can't get much cheaper for the amount of firepower they can put out.